If you're planning to visit Washington, D.C. this summer, I've got a lot of important updates for you in this video. But first, hello, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and travel hacks for visitors who want to explore Washington, D.C. And I have a Q&A series here on YouTube where I respond to your questions in the comments with YouTube Shorts. So if you have a question about an upcoming trip, leave it as a comment on this video or any video. And if you want to see all the Q&As that I've already posted, I have them organized in a playlist which I will link to in the description. First, let's start with a batch of updates about the National Mall, an area where visitors spend a lot of time. The Lincoln Memorial and Jefferson Memorials are both undergoing major renovations. Both projects are similar in that they're essentially rebuilding the areas underneath the statues. And when they're finished, they will have new restrooms, new stores, and much improved accessibility features, including new elevators. They will also have new museum exhibits for Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Jefferson that you can visit. In the meantime, when you visit this summer, you will find a lot of construction equipment and a lot of work happening. As far as accessibility during construction, the Jefferson Memorial has a temporary elevator set up on the side of the memorial, which unfortunately has been very unreliable, and I'm afraid to say you can't really count on working on any given day. At the Lincoln Memorial, they took a much different approach. They've built a huge mega ramp on the main steps that you can use to get up and down. And even though the ramp is long and takes a few minutes to go up and down, at least it doesn't have any moving parts, and we can hopefully count on it this summer. The restrooms at both the Jefferson and Lincoln Memorials are currently closed, but they do have portable toilets set up at both. So it's not necessarily ideal, but if you've got to go, you can go. A big project about to begin is the Tidal Basin Seawall Rebuilding Project. This one is a massive multi-year project that is long overdue. The Tidal Basin is currently in horrible shape. It floods just about every single day during high tide. So it's probably not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing over by the Tidal Basin for the next few years. And Trip Hacks DC Tours, as well as any tours that go to this area, will probably have to reroute during the construction. But I think in the end it will be worth this short-term pain once the new seawall is built. Other construction happening on the National Mall is over on the museum side. The Hirshhorn Sculpture Garden is currently a big hole in the ground as part of their current revitalization project. And of course, the Air and Space Museum is still in the middle of its multi-year renovation. Remember that when the Air and Space Museum quote unquote reopened, it really only about half reopened. The most recent status update from Smithsonian says that they expect the museum and its galleries to be fully reopened by the 50th anniversary of the museum in 2026. In other big museum updates, the Folger Shakespeare Library will finally wrap up its big renovation and reopen this summer. They even have an official date now, Friday, June 21st. The renovation at Folger Shakespeare includes 2 new exhibit halls, garden improvements, a new cafe, and a learning lab. I am definitely looking forward to checking it out soon. It's also worth reiterating that many museums and big tourist sites still require free timed tickets this summer, including the African American History and Culture Museum, the Air and Space Museum, Library of Congress, Ford's Theater, plus a few other big tourist sites including the National Zoo, Washington Monument, and a Capitol tour. And this is not a comprehensive list, and ticketing rules are frequently changing, so it's very important to double check the official website for any museum or site that you plan to go to confirm whether or not you need a ticket. Even if it's a free ticket, you still want to get one because summer is peak tourism season in DC, and I'd hate for you to miss out on something you wanted to do because you didn't plan ahead. Now, let's run through some important metro updates for this summer. From June 1st to August 31st, Silver Spring Station and all stations on that section of the Red Line to its north will be completely closed. This is to allow them to build connections to the new Purple Line in Maryland. This will admittedly be a bit of a rough summer for locals who live on that section of the Red Line. However, for tourists, I think this should have minimal impact on a trip. I don't recommend staying this far out of the city, and there really aren't that many tourist attractions up here either. One metro change that will impact tourists is that on July 1st, metro fares are going up. Base, rail, and bus fares will increase from $2 to $2.25. The maximum rail fare will increase from $6 to $6.75. And the weekend and late night fares will rise from a flat $2 to either $2.25 or $2.50, depending on how far you're traveling. But taking a step back and looking at this and comparing it to other cities, in my opinion, this is still one of the best deals around. If you want some help learning about the ins and outs of Metro or a demonstration on how to ride, I have a ton of Metro videos that I will link to in a playlist in the description. Now, let's run through this summer's events and seasonal fun. June is Pride Month, and this year's main weekend will be June 7th through June 9th, with the Pride Parade scheduled on the 8th and the festival and concert on the 9th. And there will be other smaller Pride events throughout the entire month of June. The Smithsonian Folklife Festival is back this year from June 26th through July 1st. This year's theme is Indigenous Voices of the Americas and will be in partnership with the National Museum of the American Indian. This year, the 4th of July will have its usual festivities, including the parade, the concert, and of course, the fireworks. 4th of July is always one of the busiest times of year here for tourism, and I have no reason to expect otherwise this summer. Since 4th of July falls on a Thursday, I expect a lot of people will be here the weekend before, the week of, and the weekend after. So if that describes you, make sure to get all your tickets, all your bookings, and all your reservations taken care of in advance, because it's going to be busy and things are going to book up and sell out. Speaking of concerts, the big 3 concerts at the Capitol are happening this summer. The first is the National Memorial Day Concert on May 26th, the 4th of July concert, and the Labor Day concert on September 1st. Jazz in the Garden is returning to the National Mall this summer. It starts on May 31st and ends on August 9th, on every Friday except July 5th. The Yards Park Concert Series is also returning this summer, on Fridays from June 28th through August 23rd. The National Book Festival is back this year on August 24th at the Convention Center. It's free, and if you're into books or authors, always a fun one to check out. If you're a sports fan, there are a lot of cool sporting events happening this summer. And this is a good chance for me to plug the newest episode of the Trip Hacks DC podcast, where I discuss in great depth my tips for attending pro sports. If you didn't know, Trip Hacks DC is also a podcast, and I've got over 50 episodes with lots of great info for you. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just check out the video description for a link to the podcast. On June 7th, the game between the Washington Mystics and Indiana Fever has been moved to the Capital One Arena. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is the newest member of the Indiana Fever, and this game might just be this summer's hottest ticket. The next day, June 8th, the U.S. men's national soccer team will play against Colombia at Commanders Field. On July 12th, the U.S. men's national rugby team will play against Scotland at Audi Field. The Savannah Bananas are coming to Nationals Park on July 13th as part of their world tour. This one is another extremely hot ticket, and I believe they're expecting a sellout at Nationals Park.
On July 16th,
the U.S. women's national soccer team will play against Costa Rica at Audi Field at their Olympic send-off game, the last friendly match that the national team plays before heading off to France for the Olympics. And the Mubadala City DC Open is bringing tennis back to DC this summer. This year's tournament dates are July 27th through August 4th. These dates do, however, overlap with the Summer Olympics, so it's unclear to me how many big tennis stars are going to make it to DC this year. And one more thing I do want to acknowledge is that yes, 2024 is a presidential election year, because people often ask me, does DC get crazy during an election year? And the short answer is no. No, it does not. From a tourist perspective, DC does not feel any different in a presidential election year than it feels any other year. Whatever your opinion is of it, the US president is chosen by the Electoral College. Practically speaking, what that means is, unless you live in or are visiting these 6 specific states, you will probably not encounter any election campaigning by the presidential candidates. When things do tend to get a bit crazy around here is for the inauguration. But that's not happening until 2025, so we'll cross that bridge when it comes. In the meantime, I have an entire video with lots of tips about visiting DC for the 4th of July. And I know a lot of you are going to be here for it. So go ahead and click or tap right over here to watch that one next. Enjoy your trip!